welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight, our weekly conversation with inspiring and accomplishing leaders and professionals who contribute significantly to the economic and social well-being of our state. And today, we have someone with us here who is enriching our, cultural life here in the state. Simon Crookall. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theater. Well, Simon, very nice to have you here.
Thank you, Alice. It's great to be here.
As I said earlier on, I was talking to Eden Lee Murray, so I have my full dose of cultural exposure just today. But a little bit background about you. So you've been here with the Hawaii Opera Theater for the last 2 years, coming up on 2 years,
Nearly
right?
2 years, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well,
and one of the great things about being here, honestly, is the richness of cultural offerings in the islands. It's quite unexpected and quite wonderful.
Well, I know you have a long career in managing arts organization, but let's just go right into this particular season with the Opera Theater. So tell us about that.
Well, we're getting towards the end of the season now. Our season began in October, and we did a wonderful production of Madame Butterfly, which our artistic director, Henry Akina, had first directed in Savonlinna in Finland. And he used a local team, actually a Hawaiian team, of Ann Namba designing the costumes and Dean Shibuya designing the set. They all grew up in Hawaii together, went to Finland to direct this production, and then we brought it all the way from Finland on a barge right round the coast, across the Atlantic, through the Panama Canal and up the Pacific. And it was well worth bringing. It was such a beautiful production. So that started off our season with a great beginning.
See, I'm sorry to interrupt,
No.
but it's so great to talk to an executive director because we don't think about the logistics behind a production. So you brought all this from Finland to Hawaii.
To Hawaii, yes. And of course, one of the great things about Hawaii Opera is that it's a combination of bringing the best from around the world to Hawaii and using our local talent. So that was a really good example. Local design team, local chorus. We have the most wonderful volunteer chorus here in Hawaii. Principal soloists from around the world, from America, from Georgia, Russia. Suzuki came from China. So we bring together a whole raft of different things, including, in this case, the set. So that was in October. And then in February, we did a production of Wagner's Flying Dutchman, another great staple of the operatic repertoire. And this time, we brought a production from New York, from upstate New York in Glimmerglass, which is known for its opera festival and for its baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York.
Baseball and opera.
Yeah, we brought the opera rather than the baseball. But that was an amazing production, directed originally by Francesca Zambello, who is the artistic director both at Glimmerglass and at Washington National Opera in DC. And that was a very exciting new look at a very staple of the German operatic repertoire. So we did that one in February. Then we did something very new for Hawaii Opera, which was to take an opera outside the Blaisdell Concert Hall, outside the big grand opera stage, and we performed a piece in a warehouse in Kaka'ako, down in Cook Street, which was a remarkable experience for everybody.
Can I interrupt you for a little bit, and may I ask the producer if you can bring up the image for Siren Song, and we can keep talking about it. That would be great.
Yes, it was very exciting for us. It was very small scale. We had 5 singers, 1 actor, an orchestra of 10, and we used actually 2 of the singers were local singers, and we brought in others from the mainland.
Yeah, so that's the set, right?
Yes.
Wow.
And it's beautiful. Well, we used projections designed by a New York videographer called Adam Larson. And he designed this amazing backdrop, which constantly changed during the opera. Everybody enjoyed it, particularly because they were so close to the action. We had just about 350 people.
That's it.
In a small space.
So intimate.
And the front row was literally 2 feet away from the action. And so very direct, very different. We had a very mixed audience of some of our traditional supporters, some of our newer, younger supporters, and everybody seemed to enjoy it equally. It was a very new, contemporary story based on a true life tale. And it was really a very interesting exercise for us, a good way to show that opera isn't always on the grand scale that we assume it will be, that you can write operas about everyday issues that affect all of us in real life. So that was a lot of fun. And now we're finishing the season with another very different kind of piece. This is Stephen Sondheim's Sweeney Todd, which is a very, I mean, people know the piece from Broadway theatre and also from the wonderful Tim Burton film, which starred Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter.
Okay.
It's a very macabre tale.
I'm actually not familiar with this story at all, but I would love
I'll
to
give
hear.
you a hint.
Yes, please do.
So Sweeney Todd is a barber, and he's originally called Benjamin Barker. And he has a very beautiful wife and a young daughter, little baby daughter. And Judge Turpin, the evil Judge Turpin, takes a shine to the wife and decides that he needs to get Benjamin Barker out of the way. So this is set in London in the early part of the 19th century. So he sends Benjamin Barker to the penal colonies, i.e. Australia.
Okay.
And he is sent there for 15 years and finally escapes and makes his way back to London seeking revenge. When he gets there, he finds that his wife has taken poison and committed suicide. And that his daughter is now being brought up as the ward of Judge Turpin. So he gets in league with an old friend, Mrs. Lovett, who runs a pie shop in Fleet Street, making meat pies, which in England is a very staple part of our diet, but in America, and especially Honolulu, is not seen as a very particularly appetizing thing. So he makes meat pies. But it's early part of the 19th century. Things are very poor. Meat is in very scarce supply. So they, to satisfy his appetite for revenge, he shaves his customers and very often slices their throats with his cutthroat razor. They go down a chute into the pie shop and get turned into pies. And she has a roaring business, Mrs. Lovett, selling pies made out of his customers. It's kind of gruesome, but very funny.
Yes.
So it's a very complex piece, technically on stage, and we have a wonderful cast of people, all of whom have performed this piece in various places around the world. It's an interesting work because although it's a musical theatre piece, it's been performed by a lot of opera companies because it's on a very grand scale, and the vocal lines are really suitable for operatic voices. So it's been done in London Opera House, in New York, at the Chicago Lyric Opera, next year San Francisco Opera are doing it. So it's a very familiar piece now on the operatic stage.
I'm so glad you can introduce us here in Hawaii to this repertoire then.
Well, it's an interesting piece and a lot of fun. I mean, it is pretty tragic if you look at it very carefully, and a lot of people die in the making of this film. We had a wonderful incident because, of course, when you have this many throats being cut, there's a lot of blood needed on stage. So we ordered stage blood from the mainland, and it arrived a couple of weeks ago. But unfortunately, one of the bags of blood split in transit. And UPS, delivering this blood, suddenly looked at this and said, what on earth is this? What are we going to do? And they were about to call in hazmat, the hazardous material people, until they called us and they said, what are you having delivered to your office? We said, don't worry, it's stage blood, don't worry, it's fine.
When you say stage blood, what is it? Is it real blood or?
No, 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 no.
Oh,
no.
okay.
It's like, I mean, it's what you would see on stage. So
Okay.
it's like paint, but it has to be a certain consistency to look like blood. It has to be able to be delivered to the victims, as it were, in a way that, you know, I mean, you've seen these things where on stage where they stab
Yes,
them and
yes.
suddenly blood
Oh,
spurts out.
okay,
It's
okay.
that kind of thing. It's
I
not real
see.
blood. No, no,
All
no.
right.
That wouldn't be safe. But it's a lot of fun. And but having the poor post office having to deal with split bags of blood, that was not really very good.
Well, I guess you must have a lot of interesting stories with every single production. Now, I have been trying to hold on to all the questions. You did a great job in introducing or in giving us an overview of all the productions in this season. Now, looking at Madame Butterfly, Flying Dutchman, Siren Song, and of course, Sweeney Todd, it's very obvious that it's from tradition to contemporary. Now, I guess I'm more familiar with the traditional opera, and I know that you mentioned that you're trying to branch out the audience, to grow the audience, so that
Yes.
it's not just for the older population. But let's come back to the emotional part of opera. For those of us who enjoy opera, and I was lucky that when I grew up as a young girl, I fell in love with Carmen. I'm not quite sure why, but I guess just
She's
now.
a fairly naughty girl, actually, to fall in
She
love with.
is, but then you also mentioned that Sweeney Todd is quite a macabre story, but I think all opera stories are like that. A lot of killing.
Well, there's a lot of killing, yes.
Right.
And in fact, we're doing 2 operas next season. We've just announced next season, Magic Flute at the beginning of the season, and Midsummer Night's Dream in February. Nobody dies in either of those operas. So
Okay.
you don't have to kill people in opera, but it helps.
Perhaps enough
I
dying in
think-
this season.
I think, you know, because of the scale of what we're doing, it's big scale, it's big drama. You need big dramatic stories. And a lot of operas have been written about stories that are very compelling when you read them in a novel or you see them in a play. But when you add music to it, it's really got to evoke passion, and it's got to evoke all the emotions for it to be successful as an opera. So even if there's no killing, you've got to be able to laugh, you've got to be able to empathize, you've got to feel the music within you to make it successful. And I think that's why the more dramatic stories really do work, because you're feeling, I mean, although, of course, it couldn't possibly be true. Although, you know, they say that Sweeney Todd might have been based on a real story. And, you know, this was the time of Jack the Ripper, who was killing people all over the place. But where the stories are very dramatic and very passionate, that's when you get the best music, and that's when you get the best opera, because everybody is swept away by the emotion of the music.
But the story themselves, they're classic, right? When you were telling me about Sweeney Todd, I said, oh, that sounds familiar. It reminded me of The Count of Monte Cristo.
Well, maybe, yes. And, you know, Madame Butterfly is a classic tale. But, yeah, and archetypes are always very important to those kinds of operas. But then, you know, there are operas based on much less familiar tales, but the convincingness of it is all in the music. And it's this wonderful combination of visual, musical, auditory, the vocal prowess of the singers. That very often there's dance involved. We have dancers in this production of Sweeney Todd. So you've got all the senses involved and engaged, and it's the culmination of all those art forms that makes it really perfect.
Simon, you said it so well, but then we're coming on a break. But then, of course, the question I have is, now the opera goers, symphony operas, the population is aging. So how do you get younger people to enjoy it? I mean, the reasons are compelling. You evoke all the senses in your body to enjoy opera. So why is it so hard to get younger people to be involved? So think about it, and then we'll come back after the break.
Okay.
My guest is Simon Crookall. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theater. You've been watching ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. We'll be right back after the break.
Inspired by an ancient culture, classical Chinese dance, vigorous physicality, timeless stories, 5,000 years of Chinese music and dance. Shen Yun presents authentic Chinese culture. Coming to Blaisdell Concert Hall, May 8th and 9th. Tickets at shenyun.com or call 808-792-3919.
Hi, I'm your host on ThinkTech Asia, Bill Sharp. I look forward to you joining us each Monday between 4 and 5 o'clock when we film right here in our studio in downtown Honolulu. The show, ThinkTech Asia, focuses on contemporary events in Asia. And by Asia, we mean anything from Hawaii, south to Australia and New Zealand, west to Pakistan, and as far north as the Russian Far East. Clearly, this is one of the most economically dynamic centers of the world, and we bring you up to date on what's going on in a whole host of countries in this very vital region. We look forward to seeing you. Aloha.
Welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My name is Alice Lee Hagan. Today with me is Simon Crocker, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theater. Before the break, he was giving us a great summary of the season's production from Madame Butterfly, Flying Dutchman, Siren Song, and of course the upcoming Sweeney Todd. Now, Simon, we were talking about how compelling operas are from the music, the story, but at the same time, it's, well, when I go into the Blaisdell Center, I know that most of the people who go are older people. So
Right.
what do you do to get younger people to enjoy opera? Because I know there are young people who enjoy the music, including my son.
Yes. I think, you know, a lot of it's about image. I think we have an image of being expensive, of being long, of being in foreign languages that nobody understands, and being very complex music that nobody wants to listen to. And all of the above are false. So the big issue is how do you get people across the threshold and into the opera? And we have found that when we get people there, they really enjoy it. They find that the stereotypes they've had in their preconception are not true. And so I think what we've been trying to do is to market in a way that speaks very clearly to that younger demographic, because yes, it's very true that our audience tends to be older, tends to be wealthier. So, but you know, the ticket prices start at $29, so it's not, you know, impossible for most people's budgets.
Especially when I realize that for a lot of popcorn concerts, they charge a lot more. Not that I go to
definitely.
those,
No,
but
no.
I've heard about that.
It's really about whether you want to see it or not. So over my career in the arts, it's been clear that you can deal with this issue several ways. One is to say, okay, we're going to pretend that opera isn't what you think it is. We're going to get you there by, you know, all kinds of nefarious means. But I think it's more important to be genuine about things. So what do young people look for in an evening's entertainment? They certainly want a social aspect to it. They certainly want some kind of food and drink aspect. It's not just sitting in a theater in a dark room for 3 hours being silent. And they want to understand what they're going to see. So we've been running a various numbers of programs to, first of all, make the event social. We're very blessed in Honolulu that across the road from the Blaisdell Center is the wonderful Honolulu Club.
Right.
And the Honolulu Club is still the only gym that I know that has a bar. It's great.
Oh,
So it's got a
didn't
beautiful
realize it.
bar that looks over the Blaisdell. So on a Tuesday night, we've created Hot Tuesday. And we do a pre-party in the Honolulu Club. People buy a combination ticket for the party and for the show. And they get to socialize with people their own age, with people who they might know or might not know and might get to know. And then everybody goes across to the hall and they sit in the same area of the hall. So it feels like a young person's event to them. And it's very approachable ticket pricing. We charge $40.
okay.
It's easy to access. And what we found the first time we did it, which was Turandot, it was the first opera after I arrived. First of all, the reaction was, wow, we actually knew some of the tunes. That's great. And this music is familiar to me. Because opera is weaved into all kinds of TV commercials, into film, into all kinds of things.
It's a mixed blessing, though, isn't it?
Well, no, but the tunes are familiar, so that helps.
That's
and then
true.
secondly, people are surprised about the fact that we translate the opera for them. We have supertitles above the stage, so even if you don't understand the Italian, which who does, you can read it, and it's very easy to understand. So those two reactions were very positive, and also we've now created this group of people who love to get together 2 or 3 times a year and come to the opera as a group. We have one section of that collection who like to dress up according to the theme of the opera. So for Siren Song, they dressed as sailors. For the Flying Dutchman, they dressed as pirates. And that's a lot of fun too, because they enjoy that. And we're growing quite a fan group amongst that demographic. The second part of this is how do you explain what's going on before they come? Because one of the things that we were told was, I can't invite my friends because I don't understand what it is, and I can't explain it to them myself. I don't know the story.
So what do you do?
So we had an event which went extremely well, called Hot Preview, and we used some of our studio singers because we have this great resource of young semi-professional singers, and we each of them portrayed a character in Flying Dutchman, and then told the story of Flying Dutchman from their character's perspective. So we had a series of stations around the room, and the attenders were encouraged to go to each station and hear the story. So Zenta is the daughter, and instead of telling us the story, she says, well, I'm a young girl, I've got my fiance, he's a great guy, but he's kind of dull. And there's this sea captain who's really exciting, and I'm really fond of him, and I think I should, get to know him better. So she's telling the story from her perspective, and by the time they've gone around all of the characters, you can make up a picture of the story without somebody standing and lecturing. And so that was a very fun way to find out about the plot. And it helped us to attract a different group of people who wouldn't otherwise know what the story of
So this group is really younger ones then, right?
We're looking at late 20s, 30s, young professional people. They work downtown, they work at the State House. They are still mostly young and single or young and attached, but not necessarily bringing up kids yet. And so prime target for us. And they may not become subscribers next week, and people don't really follow that pattern anymore. One of the issues about the business model for opera and for symphonies and for other major arts organizations is that in the last 20 years we've encouraged people to be subscribers. Buy your tickets in February for the following October through June. Who knows now what they're going to be doing in 18 months' time? I mean, younger people do not want to commit that far ahead.
That's interesting, though, but as an arts organization, don't you depend on a stable funding?
Of course.
So how do you manage these uncertainties?
Well, you have to change your model so that you're taking a smaller proportion of your income from those subscriptions. And of course, we encourage people to take subscriptions still. That's, of course, the most important thing. But if people want to cherry pick the operas or just don't want to commit, in this community especially, people buy very, very late. So in the week before an opera or a concert, we see the sales rocketing up. And it's terribly nerve-wracking because you have no idea who's going to come a week before. But that's how people's buying habits are now, and we can't fight against that. We have to go with it. So I think it helps us to tailor our marketing. And we're, of course, now using a lot more social media. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're communicating with people the way they receive their information.
You have commented on several occasions about business model, I guess going with the flow, changing the way you market just because you can't fight the tide. Now, I guess this is a good way to bring in your your other hat that you wear. I know you are passionate about opera, but really, your role, your role at the theater is really as their business manager there.
Right, and my degree is in business economics, actually.
From Cambridge University.
That's right.
And I have to mention to you, and I know I brought it up earlier on, I enjoyed opera, and when I was young, I always wondered what it's like to manage an opera house, an opera company. And to be able to interview, it's a great honor for me.
Oh, okay.
But now, having said that, wearing the other hat as a business person, what is it like for you?
Well, you know, it's all about balance, and we want to produce the best possible opera we can, and in a theatre or in an orchestra you're doing the same. But you have to be fiscally responsible. So I have my own little model of how to run an arts company, and it's the ABC model. So we have 3 equally important goals when we're running an opera company. And in a for-profit company, it's all about shareholder value.
Right.
It's all about making as much money as you can, and the business goal is the most important. In an arts company, you have A, which is artistic goals. You've got to do the best you possibly can. And sometimes that means spending money on things that you wouldn't think were fiscally sensible. Like, you know, we want this production to be absolutely wonderful, so we're going to bring in a troupe of dancers from Portland, Oregon, or for Flying Dutch when we brought in dancers from New York. It's not very good business sense to do that, but it makes the production incredibly beautiful and very exciting for the audience. So that's an artistic goal. Then you have the business goal, B, and of course you have to be fiscally stable, fiscally aware. You have to maximize the income you make from ticket sales and from commercial revenues of all kinds, and then bring in as much contributed income as you can. So B is the balancing counterpart to that. Is it worth spending all this money on this particular thing? Is it going to bring in the right kind of audience? Is it going to increase our income generating capacity?
I guess you're talking about the return on investment. Then.
Exactly, yeah. And then, but for a company like ours, I think the secret is the C. And C is for community.
Okay.
If you're not based in your community, if you're not responding to the needs of your community, if you're not working with the community, then you're not going to be a success. So you have to be aware of what the community wants. You have to lead them a little bit down the line as well. You have to bring them new things and educate in the softest possible way. But the combination of that artistic goal, the business common sense, and the community backing for what you do is incredibly important. But that means we're spinning plates all the time, because as one goal is firing away, you've got to make sure that the other side is balancing up. So it's all a question of balance between those 3 things. And that's what makes the job so much fun.
Now, I know you've been, well, we mentioned that you've been here for almost 2 years. And so how much do you think you have accomplished, especially looking at the ABC, the business model, the artistic objectives, and the community that you were just talking about?
Well, you know, the other thing about working in opera is that we plan a long way ahead. So everything we've done so far was planned long before I got here. The only thing that I had some input into was doing Siren Song in a warehouse, different kind of project. We added that in because it felt exciting and interesting to do. But the major productions have all been planned long before. So I think what I've been able to bring here is an attempt to bring fiscal stability, which is incredibly important. We always joke, Henry, Akina, and I, that he spends the money and I raise it. But so that there has to be...
That's a balance, right?
It's a good balance.
Right.
If you're in sync, it's a good balance. But so I think that's one of the things I've been able to help with. But I think the other part of it is the image of the company, the way we speak to our community, the direct benefits that we bring to a wide range of audiences, the new, younger audiences, the way we're marketing, the whole look of the company has changed. And I think that's been the most dramatic impact so far.
Well, I have to share this with the audience. I guess, again, before we came and sit down and to do this interview, you actually make the analogy of comparing opera with whiskey and vodka. And I guess that's only something that I guess a business person can relate, you know, because you're talking about opera, but whiskey and vodka, they are another totally different product.
You know, I think, as we said, I think that vodka as a product was able to rejuvenate itself by bringing different flavors, different images. It's a very trendy drink to drink. Younger people embraced it. You know, we're talking 10 years ago now, but younger people embraced it very successfully. Whiskey was always seen, and I'm thinking of Scotch whiskey here because I'm from England, but whiskey was always seen as an old man's drink. And trying to make that popular and palatable to younger people was a very difficult task for them. I think opera is the artistic whiskey in a way. It's a great quality product, but trying to make it approachable and acceptable to younger people is a challenge. And I think we're making some inroads into that.
I love that, artistic whiskey.
I'm going to use that again.
Please do.
Yes.
We're coming on our second break, but after that, I'd like to talk a little bit more about education outreach that you do.
Yes,
Great.
sure.
My guest is Simon Crocker. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theater. You're watching ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My name is Alice Lee Hagan. We'll be right back after the break. Don't.
Hi, Jay.
Hi, Keith.
My name's Keith Bettinger.
I knew that.
And I'm the host of ThinkTech Asia.
I knew that too.
Here on ThinkTech.
Fabulous. You got a great show going, Keith.
Thank you very much. And for our viewers out there that are interested in ThinkTech Asia, it airs every Tuesday from 4 to 4:45, and it can be accessed online at thinktech.com.
Yeah, so what kind of guests you like?
Well, we have a number of guests from academia, from practitioners of international affairs. Sometimes we have military officials. Sometimes we have public officials on the show. And our goal, we try to talk about current issues in South Asia, Southeast Asia, East Asia, and Central Asia, all throughout the Asian realm, in more depth than you would find in traditional mainstream
That's
media.
the difference, isn't it?
Exactly.
That you're reaching out beyond what ordinary news media would do.
Right.
That's why we like you so much.
We're trying to provide a thinking person's perspective, an intelligent perspective on what's going on, and where both sides of the story, or even when there's more than two sides, we try to cover every angle. And I think that's one of the big benefits that we provide here at ThinkTech. Is it's a really innovative source of educational programming for the people of Hawaii.
You're great, Keith. You are a great host. You got a great show going on. I watch it every week.
Thanks very much.
Why don't you guys watch it every week too, okay?
4:45 to 4 to 4:45 every Tuesday.
Welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My guest is Simon Crocker. He is the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theater. So Simon, we have talked quite a lot about the business model in managing an arts organization. And I know earlier on you talked about education, bringing young people in to get them interested in opera. So what are some of the outreach programs and activities that you've done, I guess, for our keikis here in the state, not only Oahu and perhaps in the neighbor islands?
Yes. Well, of course, education is an incredibly important part of our mission, apart from anything else, but it's also something that Hawaii Opera does extremely well, and it's been developed over many years by Henry Akina and by Eric Haynes, who's our Director of Education.
And if I can interrupt you, yes, you're right. The education program has been so great that I know some other arts organizations are trying to emulate the things that you've done. So.
Yes. And we do a number of different programs. One of the most significant is our training program for young semi-professional opera singers. And the poster child for that is Quinn Kelsey, who is now big opera star, sings in the Met and in Chicago and in London and everywhere. And so we help young fledgling opera singers to realize their full potential by bringing in coaches from the mainland, by working with our own music staff, and they take part in the operas too. So that's a great program. We have three significant programs for the schools, one of which is to open up our dress rehearsal for school children. And that's always a wonderful atmosphere. They all come along on the Wednesday night before we open. They are a great fill-up to the cast because they react incredibly well to what's going on. And they laugh in different places, and they cry in different places, and they boo the villains, and it's a lot of fun. So that's a very good way to introduce. But we also do 2 other programs in the schools themselves. One of them is our Opera Express program, and there we take an opera, a standard operatic story, we pare it down to its bare minimum. It's usually 3 singers from our studio and a pianist, and we travel it round to schools. Last year we did 70 performances of The Mikado. This year we're in the middle of a tour of the Pirates of Penzance. Next year we'll be doing Magic Flute, so it varies dramatically. And we're able to take that, because it's small and nimble, we're able to take that to schools across 4 islands. We go, of course, all around Oahu, including a couple of performances at the Hawaii Theatre.
Great.
We go to the Big Island, we go to Maui, and we go to Kauai every year.
I'm curious, what kind of feedback do you get from little ones? Especially, I know that just based on my experience with my son's classmates, they are not familiar with opera at all.
No, so. but it's, you know, the stories are very simplified. It's always in English. We usually involve some of the kids on stage in kind of spear carrying roles or whatever. But also, very importantly, there's a teaching pack that's sent to the schools in advance. So we give the teachers a lot of lesson plans. We teach them about the opera itself. We teach the kids some of the songs from the opera, so they join in when they come. So it's very involving, very participatory, and it helps them learn. So it's a very popular program in schools. And then we have a program called Opera Residency, where we literally make a school into an opera company. We choose a topic, and sometimes the school chooses their own subject. And the children participate as singers. They make the costumes, they make the props, they design the sets themselves. And that's usually over a period of 5 or 6 weeks.
Oh, really?
And then the performance is delivered. And that is really a very inside view of how you put on an opera and what it's like to be an opera star. So we have all these different programs for children. And I think, you know, of course, it's not going to immediately convert people into opera subscribers, but it shows them that opera is real, that it's approachable, that it's fun. And I think gradually, as they get more used to the concept of opera, it becomes more part of their daily life.
Now, besides partnering with schools, developing all these education programs, I guess trying to build the pipeline for hopefully opera lovers down the road. What are some of your other goals? I know that you're very passionate about your work, and it's great to have somebody like you in the community. You've been here for 2 years, so what are some other areas that you would like to work on?
Well, you know, I think the existence of an opera company in the middle of the Pacific is in itself pretty much miraculous. I think people don't expect to have an opera company here in Hawaii. They certainly don't expect to have an opera company of the quality that we present. But I think one of our goals is to show to people how innovative we can be with our art as well. So it's not just presenting the best in opera, but creating the best in opera. It's bringing the best from around the world to Hawaii, from New York, as I said earlier, from Finland, but it's also making really excellent opera here in the Pacific and having it based in Hawaii, using all those skills that opera needs. I mean, it takes a village to put on an opera. We have people creating costumes, creating sets, doing makeup. The real reason that opera here is at all possible is because of the army of volunteers that work on every production. So we have probably 200 people backstage volunteering their time and skills to dress people, to make them up, to provide food backstage, to do security. We have people called light walkers who go into the theatre in the middle of the night and walk across the stage so that the lighting designer can light the show with somebody representing the characters, so that we don't have to have the cast on stage all day long. We have note takers, we have runners, all kinds of people involved, and that's the great thing. And of course the chorus, who are all volunteers too. So that's the great thing about opera here, that it brings in all of those community people. And I think, you know, they are proud of us because of the quality of what we do. But I think also we want to be the kind of company where companies on the mainland or companies in Asia will say, wow, that production's amazing. We need to bring it to Portland. We need to bring it to Shanghai. We need to take this amazing Hawaii Opera Theatre production and take it around the world.
And that's a question I asked you earlier. Internationally, are there opportunities there for us, for the Hawaii Opera Theatre?
Absolutely. And again, we're very ideally placed. We can reach over to America, to mainland America. We can reach back over to across the Pacific to Asia. And I think there are lots of connections we can make to really enrich the product that we're demonstrating.
Simon, I am really envious of you. You make it sound like you have the best of both worlds, music and business, because of course you have had a successful track record with the Indianapolis Symphony Orchestra, and I was reading online, and they were very happy with the time when you were there, talking about meeting business objectives, bringing younger people in. You seem to have accomplished that.
I've been very lucky in my career to work with some wonderful companies.
And then, of course, for 20 years, you were in Scotland with the Scottish National Orchestra.
Yes. Yeah.
So, the sky's the limit for you, and how did it all come about? What's your background?
Well, as I said earlier, I did a degree in business economics, but music has always been a very important part of my life. I sang in the church choir from a very small age. My father was the church organist, actually, so there was no choice in that matter. But music was really important, and even at college, I was on a singing scholarship as well as doing the economics. So the combination has always been very important to me.
So why did you decide to go into economics?
Into economics?
Economics, yes.
Because I wanted to do something that would have real relevance. Not that music doesn't, but I wanted to, as well as engage my artistic side, to engage the business part of my brain, the mathematical part of my brain. So I've been very fortunate through my career to be able to work in jobs where the two come hand in hand, really. And I was at college with some incredibly talented people. I was very lucky in that respect. Some wonderful singers who were all making great careers for themselves across the world stage as opera singers and as different kinds of singers. I knew that I wasn't going to be quite that level of singer.
Okay.
So I wanted to be equally accomplished but in a different field. And now I'm able to facilitate the delivery of art through a business background, but with a very close connection to the music. So I'm very fortunate, yeah.
Well, once again, we're lucky to have you in the community, Simon. Great talking to you, and I look forward to reading more about Sweeney Todd and the audience's response to it.
Come and see it.
Great. You've been watching ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My guest is Simon Crookall, the Executive Director of the Hawaii Opera Theatre. My name is Alice Hagan. We'll be back next week. Aloha.